You're listening to the Olympics.com podcast, special for Milano Cortina 2026.
It's our final episode of the Olympics.com podcast ahead of Milano Cortina 2026, and on this pod, we're bringing you some, I stress just some, we did our best, of the biggest stories to watch at the Winter Games next month. Nick McCarville here with you as we reach the very final stretch before nearly 3,000 athletes from around the globe are set to descend on the Italian Alps, making an Olympic return to the country for a first time in 20 years. I'm joined in this episode by my Olympics.com colleague, ZK Go, who heads up our live blog team during the Games and possesses the gold standard of Olympic IQ, no matter the sport. Before we get to ZK and those big stories, I want to give you just a tease of an Olympics.com exclusive we recently had with three-time Olympic snowboard champion Shaun White. The winter sport legend spoke to another member of our team, Annie Fast, on a wide range of topics, which you can read all about on the site. Annie and Shaun spoke at length about the future of his sport, snowboarding, and also hit on what he's excited for at Milano Cortina, including the comeback of Lindsey Vonn, free ski great Eileen Gu, and Shaun's love of figure skating. Here's Shaun White on the magic of the Games and why it's so special for the athletes themselves.
It's just the fact that there's so many people tuning in to watch, and you're just on this world stage. I just don't think we draw an audience currently within the sport to compare to what the Olympics brings. And when you're there, which I didn't realize until later on, you're really representing your country. You're really there representing more than just you. And so, I remember, I think it was in Korea, I want to say, I had won the gold medal, and they're like, oh, this is the 100th gold medal for the United States. You know what I mean? Having my medals a part of the total in history medal count for America, that was such a special number 100. I was like, this is I didn't plan it. I was happy it worked out. But yeah, it was just something special, and people are so thrilled to, and proud, and so you're really kind of, that element is there, and you really feel like a team. Other disciplines and competitions in the sport, it's very unique. It's your or I should say more of an individual situation where it's your training. I'm here doing this, and all of a sudden you get to the Olympics and you're rooting for the hockey team, you're rooting for the curlers, you're rooting for the bobsled, everybody that's there, and we're all rocking the same uniforms, and it's just there's this glow, this buzz, this warmth and excitement to that competition. It's unlike any other event. So I'm really thrilled to see the faces of the newcomers, see the hopefully stoic, calm, focused, laser focused of some of the athletes that have been before, and just take it all in. But there's nothing like that sort of buzz and feeling at other competitions. So
you can find more from that interview with Shaun White on Olympics.com. Now let's get to our Milano Cortina 2026 preview with ZK Go.
This is the Olympic Games like you've never heard them before. This is the Olympics.com podcast.
Let's dive in actually to a space that you and I are quite comfortable with, and that's the figure skating, which I think is a lot of people's favorites, obviously, during the Olympic Games. I was just at the U.S. Olympic Trials, the U.S. Championships, a couple weeks ago in St. Louis, Missouri. I think I'm pretty comfortable saying, ZK, that Team USA is as strong as it's ever been. Ilya Malinin is the two-time and reigning world champion. He hasn't lost internationally in over 2 years. And among Amber Glenn, reigning world champion Alyssa Liu, and Isabella Vito, you've got probably the strongest U.S. women's team in 2 generations. That's not to mention Madison Chock and Evan Bates are the multi-time reigning world champions in ice dance. What are you looking out for in the skating, ZK?
Yeah, it's difficult to look past Team USA in those 3 events. So maybe all the attention, not all, but a lot of the attention we could put on pairs because, you know, we're looking at the comeback of the reigning Olympic champions, Su Wenjing and Han Tong from the People's Republic of China, into what is and what has shaped out to be a pretty stacked pairs field throughout the season, which didn't look like it was going to be the case right after Beijing 2022, when Sui and Han decided that they were going to take a break. You know, you just need to look at the Grand Prix series this year, where out of 6 stops in the Grand Prix series, we had 5 different pairs champions.
Wow.
Which, you know, I remember speaking to Minerva Fabian Hasse and Nikita Volodin in Finland, the German pair. And Minerva was saying, it's great. You know, everyone was saying, oh, there's not going to be a lot of competition. And in reality, there is. So I'm really interested to see how that all shakes out. They're not the only returning Olympic champions. We've seen in ice dance that Guillaume Cizeron for France is back with his new partner, Laurence Fournier-Baudry. So, yes, it's going to be very intriguing to see how, especially Sui and Han, because during the Grand Prix series, they were not one of the 5 teams that won one of those 6 Grand Prix. So where are they? What the level is at? Because we know in dance with Cizeron and Fournier-Baudry, they've come back and they've more or less slotted in where Cizeron left off.
Yeah, it's going to be super fascinating. I mentioned the American women so strong in singles. Throw in Sakamoto Kaori, the Japanese skater. She won a trio of world titles before Alyssa Liu snatched it from her last year. It's going to be her farewell from the games. And yeah, you mentioned Guillaume Cizeron back in the ice dance. It's just going to be fascinating to see. Do you think, from, you know, your broad Olympic hat that you're able to wear, do you think Ilia Malinin is as favorited as any athlete in any sport at these Winter Olympic Games?
It's hard to pick another athlete who, because, you know, you look at the other big names in inverted commas, Michaela Shiffrin or Jordan Stoltz, they have challengers. And you look at Ilia Malinin, and his nearest challenger is maybe 40 points behind him. So it is really hard to look at anyone else as being such a strong gold medal favorite heading into Milano, I think.
Yeah, 40 points is a lot, by the way, in figure skating, just if you weren't sure. Let's turn our attention to the hockey, both the men and the women. The big news, obviously, on the men's side is the return of the NHL. We haven't seen NHL players since Sochi 2014. How does that shift the world order? How does that sort of change the landscape in men's hockey when we add back the NHL superstars?
Yeah, I think everyone's really excited about the NHLers coming back, not least the NHLers themselves. I think we have to put it in perspective that obviously in 2018 and 2022, we didn't have NHL players, but we still have very successful men's hockey tournaments. The absence of the NHL didn't diminish those tournaments in the sense of they were still Olympic tournaments, just as many Olympic tournaments before have been played without NHL players. But there is no doubt that the NHL is the strongest league in the world, and having their players in Milano is going to make a difference. And immediately you look at the teams which have found the podium in the last couple of Olympics without NHL players. Teams like Germany winning silver in 2018 and Slovakia winning bronze in 2022. And suddenly they only have maybe 7, 8, 12 out of their 25 players playing in the NHL. And you look at Canada, the US, Sweden, who have all 25 of their roster playing in the NHL. And we have to mention that the rink isn't international size. We're not playing on the same size rink as we did in 2018 and 2022. We're playing on a smaller rink, which the NHL players will be more used to. It is slightly different from NHL standards, but they are going to be more used to this rink size than most of the players who don't play in the NHL.
Zedke, you always come with the factoids. I love it.
That is going to make a difference, I think. And obviously, Sidney Crosby returning for a chance at a 3rd Olympic gold medal. He's not the only one on Team Canada. His teammate Drew Doughty on defense also played with him in 2010 and 2014. So both of them are going for their 3rd gold medal. Team USA coming in. They want their first Olympic gold since the Miracle on Ice. They won the World Championships, the standalone World Championships for the first time in over 90 years in 2025. So they're coming in ready to go, raring to go, and actually, for the first time in a long time, capable of challenging Canada. So that's going to be really interesting. So I think while we look at USA against Canada in the men, obviously that's not to roll out Sweden and Finland, who also have many NHLers on their teams. It's also realistically going to be USA and Canada in the women. The big question is, will they meet in the gold medal match? It is very hard to see them not to. I think it would be a shock if they didn't both make it to the championship match. Historically, that has only ever happened once, where one of the teams didn't make the Olympic final since women's hockey came in. So yeah, it is maybe the greatest rivalry in women's hockey. It has always been. And I'm watching to see if Finland, Switzerland, Czechia can pull something off. But it is very hard to look past USA, Canada.
Yeah, the Americans and Canadians in women's hockey, they've split the 7 Olympic Games previously, those gold medals, 5 to the Canadians, 2 to the Americans. I asked you about Ilya Malinin being the most favorited. I think this is probably one of the most intense, the greatest rivalries that we're going to see in all of Milano Cortina is USA, Canada in the women's ice hockey. Let's go from women's ice hockey to the women's slopes and a couple of Americans who are just absolute megastars in Lindsey Vonn and Mikaela Shiffrin. 2 very different stories here. Obviously, Shiffrin looking for redemption after Beijing 2022. Several stumbles there, left without an individual medal, whereas Lindsey Vonn, we hadn't seen her in 6 years, comes back with a bionic knee. She's got a couple World Cup wins this season. ZK, it feels like both of them are certainly contenders not only for the podium in their respective events, but for Olympic gold.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. Shiffrin's had a really strong year. She actually had a 6-event winning streak dating back to last season in slalom on the World Cup. So before she was finally knocked off the top. So she's in really good form. As is Vonn, who, as you mentioned, has 2 wins this season. So much so that she actually came out and said, maybe the Olympics isn't the ending point. Maybe she's going to go on and at least try to get to the World Cup finals at the end of the season, because she's done better than she herself expected. So yes, they're both bona fide gold medal challengers in their respective events, slalom and downhill. I know Shiffrin has spoken about not quite being there in giant slalom yet, because obviously she had that big accident last season. So there is still the mental with the GS, but in her slalom, it is very hard to look past her. That is not to say that she is as runaway of a favorite as Ilya Malinin is in the skating. As I did mention, well, as you mentioned, Ilya has an over 2-year winning streak, and Mikaela was recently beaten into first by Kamila Rast in Kranjska Gora in Slovenia. So yes, she is a favorite, but there are others ready for her to have an off day and pounce. Whereas, thinking back to skating, if Malinin has an off day, he's still probably good enough to win. Yeah. As for Vonn, she's definitely put herself as one of the favorites. I think it is fair to point out, as she herself probably would, she came into this season not really with the goal of probably winning Olympic gold, I would say. Making it to the Olympics was her first goal, which she has now. And winning the 2 World Cups along the way, a huge bonus. She's now within 2, as we record, of Ingemar Stenmark's men's record of 86 World Cup wins. Vonn has 84. She was obviously the record holder for women until Shiffrin came along. So Vonn herself, as of recording, is very close to Stenmark, and maybe she has that in her mind as well. going to the Olympics is great, and winning an Olympic medal would be a remarkable comeback. But she has the chance to pull herself level or go past what is still a record, even if it's not the women's record, a record in Alpine Skiing World Cup history, and for the longest time was the record in Alpine Skiing World Cup history.
Wow, it's completely amazing. And if you guys haven't had the chance to check out our alpine skiing episode, Alessandro Poggi, who is our Italian colleague, he covers skiing year round, essentially. He's covered it for years. He and I did a deep dive, which I think, Zedke, is mostly still relevant. We did that a few weeks ago. Of course, you can scroll back on our Olympics.com podcast feed to find all sorts of different episodes, including, I just want to throw out a mention to ski mountaineering, which is making its Olympic debut. We're actually going to wait until the end of the games, 19 and 21 February. Skimo is a blend of uphill skiing, climbing, and high-speed descents. It is hugely popular in the Alps, and I did a deep dive into that sport. I learned a lot, Zedke, recently, and I'm excited. It is the ultimate running up a mountain in ski boots. I mean, these guys are insane, and it's going to be cool to see this sport have its Olympic debut.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very excited for it too. I think the sprint format, is short, it's punchy. Obviously, you have the relay as well, but that's really going to capture visually the attention, how quick they have to be to get up that mountain before skiing back down. So yes, absolutely. First time for it. It's going to be great.
Yeah, we got a deep dive on that in the podcast. You've also got an episode of Athletes to Watch and Emily Harrop, the French woman. And you've got a great documentary that is on Olympics.com. It's called Into the Unknown. It shows you everything you need to know about skimo, so check that out. Zedke, let's stay on the snow and go to cross-country skiing, where there are all eyes on Johannes Klæbo, who is in pursuit of Olympic greatness. The Norwegian, he's 28, which is actually rather young in this sport. This is a sport where you sort of bed yourself in generationally, and he's considered the youngest man to win the Cross Country World Cup, the Tour de Ski, a world championship title, and Olympic gold. With 5 Olympic golds, 1 silver, 1 bronze, he heads into Milano Cortina as the most decorated male cross-country skier in history. This Klæbo is able to do it all.
As you mentioned, he is still young, and we're talking about a sport where historically you can compete till you're in your 40s. Marit Bjørgen comes to mind. So it's remarkable that he's had the amount of success that he has had. So yeah, I'm very impressed to see how Johannes Klæbo has been able to assert his dominance on the sport. And speaking of dominance, if we look over at the women's events as well, this will be Jessie Diggins's final Olympics as well. The US skier has said this is her last season. So since she won team sprint gold in Pyeongchang, she's really been at that very top level of the World Cup. But that team sprint gold in Pyeongchang remains her only Olympic gold to date. She had a silver and a bronze in Beijing. And it'll be interesting to see if she can claim another before she retires at the end of the season.
Yeah, Jessie Diggins, a huge American star, 34, relatively quote-unquote young in this sport. But yeah, she's really been in the conversation in terms of cross-country. And as you say, she's really open throughout her career about her mental health and also her battle with disordered eating. We've covered a lot of that across Olympics.com. Okay, so I just want to stay on the snow for a couple more things, including I'm going to go back to Alpine and the fact that Brazil could win a first ever Olympic medal in Alpine skiing. That's because Lucas Brothen, who skied for Norway, his dad is Norwegian, his mom is Brazilian, he switched allegiances, but he's been a huge superstar. He featured on our Alpine skiing episode as well, ZK. He is a social media superstar. He is not shy of the camera, that is for sure. And he's really backed up. He's skied the talk, right? He's not just these bolstery, these big time headlines. He has been able to deliver on the World Cup, helping Brazil or leading Brazil to its first ever World Cup podiums. And he certainly is going to be a factor come Milano Cortina.
There is no doubt about that. In fact, he took Brazil's first ever World Cup win earlier this season in Finland in a slalom. He, as you say, he competed for Norway until 2023, decided to retire from the sport. It was a shock because, he is still only 25, so he was 23 at the time. And he'd won 5 World Cup races for Norway. And then, as you say, decided to race for Brazil, his mother's country, changed his name from Lucas Brothen to Lucas Pinheiro Brothen to take his mom's maiden name as well. So it is really incredible to think that Brazil could win an alpine skiing medal, especially since you don't associate Brazil with snow. But
exactly.
The diaspora, the Brazilian diaspora is huge, and they have successfully reached out, not just in alpine skiing, but across various sports, to members of the diaspora to convince them to represent Brazil. So even though alpine skiing might be Brazil's biggest chance at a medal in Milano Cortina, don't be surprised to see Brazilian athletes do well enough to register that, hey, Brazil, a Winter Olympic country? Yes, Brazil is a Winter Olympic country now.
One of those sad stories is Brazil's Nicola Silveira, who is partners with her training mate, the Belgian Kim Malemans, and they're living proof that love and competition can share the same icy stage. These are 2 athletes who train together. They are romantic off of the ice, and there's another chance for Brazil to factor in the skeleton, which is pretty amazing. ZK, let's go to another familiar Olympic name in Chloe Kim, the snowboard halfpipe gold medalist, both from Pyeongchang 2018 and Beijing. It's been a fascinating journey for Chloe. She considered retirement. She has been open about depression. And just this season, actually just a couple of weeks ago, she suffered a labrum tear. And she did say that she's going to be good to go for Milan. And it's been amazing to see this season. She's talked openly about doing it all for herself. Initially, of course, you're going for the Olympic gold, doing so in snowboard halfpipe. But she said the focus is really internal for Chloe Kim, and she could create more history in her discipline.
Chloe Kim's been there, done it since 2018. But this injury that she suffered in training ahead of LAX, the World Cup stop in Switzerland, is a bit of a downer. Even if she does come back for Milano, as she says she hopes to, I think it will leave a big question as to her fitness, as to how ready she is. Which is unfortunate, obviously, for her and for us as fans, really, because you want the biggest names, the best names there in health. She's not the only one. Jamie Anderson, who's also a 2-time Olympic champion, she suffered a fall at the Aspen stop recently. She hurt herself as well. So it's unfortunate for the sport, but the athletes obviously are very aware of the injury risks that come with their sport. So it's a race against time, and hopefully they're at their best.
Yeah, it's been, we mentioned Chloe Kim. It is a race against time, and it's been a struggle for a lot of athletes. I think of Laura Gutberami, the great Swiss Olympic champion, and herself had an injury earlier this season. She's out of the Olympics. It just, you can't plan this timing. And I think that's, for us mere mortals, I think that's what feels unfair about the Olympic Games, is that you never know really what's going to happen in terms of timing, injuries. And it makes it that much more amazing that some of these athletes are able to deliver their absolute best when asked for. Speaking of, in freestyle skiing, Eileen Gu from the People's Republic of China, she was absolutely dominant at her home Olympics in Beijing 2022. She swept the free ski halfpipe and big air. And she actually, I believe I'm right in saying that she's going to be a contender, Zebke, in all 3 of those disciplines in Italy.
It is safe to say that she will be aiming for medals in all 3, gold medals in all 3. She herself actually is just off the back of an injury that has really hampered her season so far. But she has now achieved her points. Obviously, she'll have to be named to the team, but it is difficult to look past her as a medal favorite. Not necessarily for gold. Obviously, there are challengers to the crown, but she is definitely one to watch in free ski.
Okay, let's go to, I want to go to the ice. And this was never, of course I want to cover every Olympic story, but we're missing big ones here, of course. Curling, bobsleigh, luge. You can find all of that coverage on Olympics.com, don't worry. I want to hit on speed skating. Let's start at the short track. Arianna Fontana, Italy's most decorated Winter Olympian, 11 medals. She's looking to try to compete in both the short track and the long track events, which is insane, by the way. And I love this story. As an Italian, she made her Olympic debut at Turin 2006. She's already been named as one of the opening ceremony flag bearers for Italy. She's got an uphill battle, ZK, in trying to climb on the podium again. But what an awesome, you think of a home Olympics. Amazing. A 6th Olympic Games. What an incredible story that could be.
She is a 2-time champion in the 500, 2-time reigning champion in the 500, which is probably her strongest event. But as you say, things have moved on. I think that the challenge is there. We always look at teams like Canada, Republic of Korea in short track. But it is a home crowd. It is Milano. It is the full circle. And everyone will be cheering her on. And home advantage can do wonders.
Can I ask you, I'm putting you on the spot a little bit. I mean, I think of Charline Guinard and Marco Fabri in the ice dance. Obviously, we're just talking about Arianna Fontana. There's been, Alessandro was talking about this in the alpine skiing episode. There's been a little bit of a vacuum in terms of the skiing talent. Federico Brignoni has been a torchbearer for Italy for a long time. Are there any other big Italian hopes and dreams? I'm thinking too about it's the mixed doubles in the curling as well. They've got a huge chance, don't they?
Absolutely, the ones I was going to mention. Amos Mosaner and Stefania Constantini in the mixed doubles curling. They are defending Olympic champions. They actually took some time off as a mixed doubles pairing. They are back. They've basically picked up where they left off. They will be difficult to beat. And I think, curling exploded in popularity in Italy after what they did in Beijing. I think they've got a chance to continue that.
Okay, ZK, we are winding down here. I want to go from, we were talking about Ilya Malinin earlier, huge favorite in the figure skating, maybe equal to a fellow youngster from the United States, Jordan Stolz. He is a serious contender for medals in the 500, the 1,000, and the 1,500. This is long track speed skating, by the way. In 2023, he became the youngest world champion in the event's history and the first man to win 3 individual titles. He's only gone from strength to strength. He's a man of few words. The Wisconsin native is Jordan Stolz, but doesn't need to do anything but win medals, it feels like, out there on the long track.
Yeah, world record holder at the 1,000-meter race, 2-time world champion in each of those distances you just mentioned. He isn't unbeatable, I will say. He did suffer a freak sort of fall on the ice at US trials, and only managed to finish 3rd quickest in the 1,000, which is his event, his event, because he is the world record holder. But on his day, as you mentioned, he is a bit like Malinin, where you don't expect anyone to be close. But as in figure skating, speed skating relies on the ice. And if you catch the ice wrongly,
right,
it all goes pear-shaped. And
the saying is, ice is slippery, right?
Ice is indeed slippery. I will mention that despite his fall, he still got up and raced himself to the 3rd fastest time. So obviously it's a bit different where in figure skating, if you fall, sort of, you get back up, you do a clean rest of your program, you can still rescue it, whereas you are against the clock in speed skating. So it is a bit more tricky. But, on his day, he is the one to beat. And talking about speed skating, I do want to mention the Netherlands Jutta Leerdam in the women's events as well. She, like Stoles, is, considered a real favorite. And she, like Stoles, in her Olympic trials, fell. She got a discretionary pick by the Dutch Federation to be named to the team. So it'll be interesting to see how they deal with the pressure of being at the Olympics. They've both been to the Olympics. They were both in Beijing. So they know what it's like to be there, but going in as medal favorites is very different. The pressure's on them. And if they happen to have an issue with the ice on the day, how they recover, will they keep their heads? It's going to be fascinating to see. But both Stoles and Leerdam are superstars almost in their respective sports. Leerdam obviously has a big social media presence as well. And it'll be interesting to see how they do.
I think it's interesting too, you mentioned the Olympic experience, but for all of these athletes, we're days away from the games, and for both Stoles and Leerdam to have a bit of a struggle at the final hurdle, I think you can argue it either way, right? Like, it's good not to go in completely untouchable. It's good to be reminded of your mortality, your humanity, but also don't you think it puts just that tiny little needle of doubt in their mind too?
I think they're experienced enough, even at their ages, to be able to recover quickly and move on from, the incident. But it is, as you mentioned, I don't think it's so much about the doubt in their mind, but it is a reminder to everyone else that they're not infallible and it is possible to beat them.
Okay, ZK, we're wrapping up here on our Olympic preview. One thing, we'll close just with a couple of our, most excited fours in terms of the games. That opening ceremony is set for February the 6th. It's really cool too. I mean, this is a games of the future. I think in Paris 2024, we saw all of the historic sites being used across Paris. And for Italy, for Milano Cortina, it's a 70-year anniversary of Cortina hosting those 1956 Winter Games. But to include Milan, this is the most spread out Olympic Games of all time. Of course, there's going to be logistical challenges, but it's also going to provide the most incredible landscapes. And we've talked about this on the podcast before. A lot of the mountain athletes, you think of the ice track folks coming down in luge, bobsleigh, and skeleton. You think of the alpine skiers, biathlon, cross-country skiing. They're so excited to return to a space, a place, and atmosphere that they all know very well because of a lot of their respective World Cups and Grand Prix head to this part of the world every season.
Yes, exactly. Alpine skiing in Bormio and Cortina, two very famous slopes. You've got biathlon in Anterselva, which is also a regular World Cup stop. So yes, as you mentioned, they're all going to be on familiar territory, and I think that helps. Especially coming off the last Olympics in Beijing, where everything was new. So you really had to adapt to the conditions. And obviously, you still have to adapt to the conditions because the weather will be different, etc., etc. But it's something they're used to. These are venues they visit every year. And there will be that sense of familiarity, which I think will be good. And, speaking of Beijing, we saw it a bit in Paris. They'll get the chance to be at an Olympics with fans again. There were some fans in Beijing, there were local fans, but the atmosphere was different. I think we recognize that. So there is that additional excitement that they're going to be able to compete in front of their friends and family, especially for the European athletes who, for whom their families don't have to travel very far. So it's going to be historic venues, great visuals because of the mountains and, just the environment. The fans are back. It's all set up for a great event.
Yeah, it was crazy, leading into this Olympic season. Like, I was at the Team USA Summit. You've been at several different events throughout the season. And it was crazy to hear these winter athletes talk about Beijing. I was like, oh, right, that was the last time they were at an Olympics. It feels like a lifetime ago with COVID-19. Lastly, I always love to put you on the spot. I'm going to give you options, though. I want the story you're looking forward to the most, or give us one big, bold prediction. I will let you think here by giving you my favorite story, which is going to be no surprise to a lot of the figure skating fans. The American figure skater Maxim Naumov qualifying for the Olympics in a really emotional fashion. His parents, Vadim Naumov and Evgenia Shishkova, were the 1994 world champions in pairs. They were hugely successful in their crafts as athletes and coaches. They tragically passed away in that aircraft crash outside of Washington, D.C. last year that claimed the lives of some 30 members of the U.S. figure skating family, expanded family. And ZK, I was in St. Louis with our colleague Scott Bregman, and Max Naumov, he is a picture of humanity. He's a picture of someone who has been through so much, has not turned away from it, and has dug deep. Pretty incredible stuff. Looking forward to him, of course, joining Ilya Malinin and Andrew Torgashev as the third member of the U.S. men's figure skating team.
Yeah, Nick, you and I were in Boston at the last World Championships where Naumov skated an exhibition program in tribute to his parents. And I remember being in the mix zone after that, in that gaggle of journalists, listening to him talk about that experience. And it is very touching, and it is motivating to see how he's come even in this last year, and the fact that he is now an Olympian, which he has openly said he and his parents used to talk about it all the time, and he has done it now. So absolutely, that will be one of the stories to watch. So I'm going to give you a bold prediction, Nick.
Yes, love it.
My bold prediction comes in men's curling, where at least on the Olympic level, we've seen Niklas Edin and Team Sweden really dominate. They are the defending champions. My out there bold prediction is that Team GB, led by Bruce Mowat, is their time. And my bold prediction is we will see Mowat and team take home the gold back to Scotland, back to Great Britain.
Wow, I love it. And I think it was Bruce Mowat who told our very own Chloe Merrill in the last year that loss to Sweden at Beijing 2022 is the stuff of nightmares. So Team GB going to look to capture its first curling gold on the men's side since 1924, if you can believe it. Bruce Mowat would also become the first openly gay men's curler to win an Olympic title. It is Team GB who is the reigning champion on the women's side. ZK, as always, you are a Olympic encyclopedia. I thank you so much. People can read, experience, and feel the games with you on Olympics.com. You guys actually start the live blog before the opening ceremony, is that right?
Yep, we are live from the 4th of February when the first curling matches begin.
ZK, a huge pleasure. Thank you so much.
No worries, Nick. Thank you.
The best of Milano Cortina 2026. Only on the Olympics.com podcast.
Thanks again to ZK Go for his help in covering just some of the stories we can't wait to enjoy at Milano Cortina 2026. We've got you covered every single sport, every single discipline. It's all on Olympics.com throughout the games themselves. Don't forget as well to download the Olympics app, where you can access the full schedule of the games, get all the latest news and features, watch exclusive content, test your knowledge with Olympic trivia, and if you're joining us in Italy, get spectator information on everything you need to know. Before I leave you, I've invited some more of my colleagues onto the pod to give their big story for Milano Cortina 2026. We've got a team that will be spread across the games to bring you live daily coverage, and a few of them share here just what they can't wait for you to experience too. For now, I'm Nick McCarville for the Olympics.com podcast, and here's what the rest of the team has to say on the eve of the Olympics. And the next time you'll hear from me, that'll be on the ground in Milan. Stay golden, everyone.
This is the Olympic Games like you've never heard them before. This is the Olympics.com podcast.
Hi, I'm Chloe Merrill, an Olympics.com reporter who covers curling. Now, what can I tell you about the roaring game at Milano Cortina 2026? Well, first and foremost, it's going to be really special. The men's, women's and mixed doubles competitions are packed full of challenges. The competition, you could argue, has never been so tough and the talent so deep. But if I'm going to share with you one storyline for you guys to follow, it's got to be in the mixed doubles. That will kick off the curling action at the Games on the 4th of February, and we are all going to be keeping a close eye on Team Italy. Amos Massana and Stefano Constantini shocked everybody 4 years ago at Beijing when they won gold to claim Italy's first ever curling Olympic title. Now they're going to be back in Cortina, Stefano's hometown, to defend their title. And if anybody thinks they're not up to it, well, last year they went unbeaten to win the World Championships. So keep an eye out for them.
Hi, I'm Sven Busch, director of daily content, and I'm on a go with Eileen Gu. I mean, how can you not love her grit, her creativity, and just her sheer talent in so many areas? I vividly remember her bursting onto the scene at the 2020 Youth Olympics in Lausanne, and it was pretty clear then that she would make it big, and man, she sure has delivered on many fronts. So I'm really looking forward to seeing her compete in Livigno this time around.
Hey Nick, hey listeners. I'm Grace Goulding, an Olympics.com producer who this season is covering lots and lots of ice hockey and speed skating for you all heading into Milan. And I have to say that my number one top story of these Olympic Games has to be the NHL players returning to Olympic ice hockey. It's the first time since Sochi 2014 that these world's best men's players are going to be back in the tournament. And it basically means that we get to witness the best possible level of international ice hockey that there is today. It means that NHL legends like Sidney Crosby will be back in the Canadian jersey, and generational superstars like Connor McDavid, Nate McKinnon, Austin Matthews, Cale Makar, I mean, the list just goes on, but they're all making their Olympic debuts, which is very exciting because we've gotten a glimpse of what this action can look like at the Four Nations last year, when players who play together in regular season NHL games now face off in different national jerseys, and what kind of intensity that can bring out in the game. The players loved it, the fans loved it. So we're super excited to see what the Olympic stage will bring out of these best men's players.
Ciao, I'm Alessandro Poggi, and I've been covering alpine skiing for Olympics.com for almost 10 years. I will be reporting in Cortina d'Ampezzo, and for me, two are the biggest stories to watch. First is the Clash of the Titans, let's call it like that, in the women's downhill race, with Lindsey Vonn, the American legend, facing her friend Sofia Goggia, that also is the Italian biggest medal hope. Vonn winning an Olympic title that would be the first after 16 years at 41 years of age on her favorite track, the Olympia delle Tofane, would be for sure the story of the Games for me, especially if we consider she has a sort of new knee and she came back from retirement only 1 year ago. I'm also looking forward to seeing Mikaela Shiffrin. She's the most successful skier in history. She will have a lot of pressure again, but I think she will be very motivated to prove critics wrong after the last disappointing Olympics. And there are many more stories to watch out for, like the returns from injury of Federica Brignone and Petra Vlhova. So it will be an exciting Olympics in skiing for sure, and I can't wait for it.
Hi, I'm Scott Bregman, an Olympics.com reporter who covers gymnastics. In Milano, I'm looking forward to seeing American figure skater Amber Glenn. At 26, she's making her Olympic debut at an age that's almost unheard of in her sport that's dominated by teenagers and much younger athletes. But for Amber, it's been a journey that has seen her miss out on two other opportunities to make the U.S. Olympic team. And she has really grown from that, and in the last 3 or 4 years leading to Milano, has figured out how to compete and how to perform, and has become, I think, one of the most captivating personalities and athletes in the sport. And I can't wait to see how it goes.
Hi there, I'm Jo Gunston and I'm a journalist for Olympics.com. I cover human interest stories across a broad range of sports, so thought I'd pick out a few ahead of Milano Cortina 2026 for you to look out for. We've got the married couple Nicole Silveira and Kim Meulemans, who are going to be competing against each other for an Olympic skeleton medal just months after getting married. I mean, that's quite the honeymoon, right? There's also the Italian snowboarder Roland Fischnaller, who's aiming for a first ever Olympic medal after 6 Olympic Games. He came fourth at Beijing 2022 in the parallel giant slalom, which is the closest effort to date. So what a story if the reigning world champion could actually do that at a home Olympic Games at a 7th time of asking. There's also 42-year-old Canadian Diana Stellato Dudek, who's returned to figure skating after a 16-year retirement. That story features on the Olympic Channel original series, so make sure to give that a watch before immersing yourself, along with Olympics.com, in all the stories at Milano Cortina 2026 Olympic Winter Games.
Hola, hola, I am Lorena Encabo, Spanish producer at Olympics.com, mainly covering Latin America and Spanish-speaking athletes. So for me, one of the athletes I am most excited to watch at Milano Cortina is, without any doubt, Donovan Carrillo, because he's not just a figure skater. I think he's an inspiration and a role model, especially coming from a country with no winter sports tradition. So I can't wait to see him skate a mi manera, my way, on the Olympic ice in Milan. And whatever the result is, I think what he represents already feels like a victory. So, vamos Donovan.
Hi, I'm Nishal Shvaga-Patel and I'm a reporter and producer for Olympics.com. At 20 years old, ski jumper Nika Previc has achieved so much in her career so far. She has 2 overall World Cup titles, 2 World Championship gold medals, and she's the women's world record holder with 236 meters, that's 774 feet, her best ever jump. She's going to be making her Olympic debut at Milano Cortina 2026, joining her brothers, Peter and Cena, as Winter Olympians for Team Slovenia. I'm so excited to see her compete, not only going for the gold medal, but seeing if she can improve on her already incredible world record.
Hi, I'm Shintaro Kana, producer for Olympics.com covering figure skating. For me, at the Milano Cortina Games, which is just around the corner, I am keen to know who in the end will come out ahead in the ultra-tight women's singles competition. Any one of the 3 US and Japanese women could win it, in addition to Adelia Petrosian. If you're a figure skating fan, you won't want to miss the closest women's race we've seen in recent memory. Enjoy.
Hi, I'm Annie Fast. I cover free skiing and snowboarding for Olympics.com. And 2 of the biggest stories that I think are going to go down at the Olympics are in the men's halfpipe, both in free skiing and snowboarding. In snowboarding, you've got Scotty James going for his 5th Olympic Games, looking for his 3rd medal, this one gold. He's got bronze and silver. He is looking good, but he's up against a very intimidating Japanese squad, including defending gold medalist Ayumu Hirano and maybe Yuto Totsuka, who's having a really incredible season, and about 5 other Japanese athletes who could all end up on the podium. So I'll be looking to see what happens with Scotty James and whether he gets his gold medal in his 5th Olympic Games. Similarly, in men's free ski halfpipe, you've got Alex Ferreira, who's coming back, trying to get his own gold medal. He's got a bronze and a silver. He is also looking really good going into these games. He's got some really interesting challengers with teammate Nick Gepper, who is a 3-time medalist in slopestyle, has moved over to halfpipe and is one of Ferreira's main competitors. So we'll see if Nick Gepper gets on the podium. Does he better Alex Ferreira in the men's halfpipe, or does Ferreira get his gold medal? I'm really excited to see how that plays out.
Hi, I'm Matt Nelson, an Olympics.com reporter who covers bobsleigh, luge, and skeleton. Lately, I've also helped spearhead our coverage of athletes from non-traditional winter sports nations. I'm really excited for global audiences to get to know many of these incredible athletes, such as Malaysian ice tiger Arwin Salahuddin and Singaporean gate basher Faiz Bash in alpine skiing, South African snowbock Matt Smith, and doctor-turned-skier Regina Martinez of Mexico in cross-country skiing, as well as Brazilian bobsleigh legend Edson Bendelati, who's set to compete at his 6th Olympic Games, along with Argentine luge athlete Veronica Revena, who's ready to star in her 3rd. So get ready for winter to go global, as the Olympic Winter Games Milano Cortina 26 come to life from 6 to 22 February. Ciao.
The best of Milano Cortina 2026, only on the Olympics.com podcast.